Yeah, I guess I always wait for the last minute to do these things. I was gonna do a March one here. I'm filming March 31st. It's kind of something that's been on my mind for a while. I'm just walking my little ravine hiking spot. Sometimes there's a river here. I call it Victoria River, but it hasn't been raining, so which is normal for us. Today, I'd like to tell you about kind of a project that I want to do, and I'll actually get it started today with my options. I was asked by a friend, like for a cool YouTube video or a couple of videos, like one of my favorite art techniques or artist techniques or artists, and I figured I could, I think that'd make a really interesting story, just because it's probably looking right in the sun. That's gonna look really bad. Let's go out of here. So this video is kind of like a entry one for this. And my friend Yulia, who should start a cooking channel called Cooking with Yulia, because she's Russian and makes this really good Russian stuff, and she shows it off on Instagram and TikTok, but we need her on YouTube, and I figure if I call her out, she'll do it. But she asked, like, make a video about one of my favorite painters, which is going to be my grandfather, because it's my business, and it's also a huge influence, and the technique that they used, that I've learned from. I figured this would be really cool, so this will be kind of like maybe I can do a painting using these techniques. Now, this first one, the first technique that I want to talk about is actually something that's like super controversial among artists, among art lovers and everything, and that's the use of a camera to get your source pictures. I do it a lot. In fact, I always do it. I never not do it. The only time I didn't do it is if I'm sketching for fun, like just to enjoy something, or if I'm in a class where the purpose is to not use every tool at your disposal. Now, this use of cameras, like I look on Reddit and someone will show a painting that they made, and quite clearly it went through a camera, and people will give them shit for it. And I think it's really uncalled for, because so as long as that's your photo, it doesn't matter. If you use the camera to get your image, it doesn't matter. There's a movie that I really like called Tim's Vermeer, that's about an engineer named Tim Jennison who went and he made a Vermeer painting using these techniques of lenses and mirrors that could have existed during the time of Vermeer. And he wasn't an artist, but he was a tinker and he's an engineer, and he made a painting. Spoiler alert, I mean, he made the painting. But he used tools that a lot of artists like despised the guy. And they don't just take it lying down, they take that like a shot to their livelihood. Oh, Vermeer didn't use lenses or glass or anything. He just did it through his brilliant imagination and brilliant eyeballs. However, there's evidence of lensing in the paintings. With my grandfather's paintings, and I'm gonna actually use these as, I'm not gonna paint them, but I'm actually gonna paint my own or draw my own, however far I want to take this project, which, don't be surprised if it just goes beyond a sketch, maybe a little sketch painting with watercolor washes or something. But I may want to show a couple other techniques. My grandfather, Don O'Neill, used cameras. He used lenses. He had to. And I'm actually going to illustrate why in the next video. Really simple thing. Let's say you're a painter and you're going to go to Italy. Okay, that's a big deal. It's a lot of money. Not everyone gets to go to Italy. It's expensive. You can sit down with your easel and you can do, plein air painting. And if that's your craft, that's beautiful, do it. But if you're a studio artist, you're gonna be much better served taking a camera with you and getting thousands of pictures and then figuring out which ones you wanna use to paint with when you're at your studio. When you're at your studio, you're gonna have every tool at your disposal. You're gonna have time on your side. You can redo things. You can map things out easier. So if you're in the act of creating, why not use all these tools? The purpose of art is expression, not complete limitation, unless it's what you set out to do. I'll give an example where if you're in a class, because like many of my friends are college teachers and they teach arts, if your instructor says, hey, no using a camera, we're doing lifestyle drawing or lifestyle painting, well, that is the challenge. There was a class I took many years ago. It was a figure drawing class, and we had an assignment where we had to use a mirror to draw our face. Now, the mirror we use is a small little hand mirror, and you got to hold it out or position however you can. And it's like, this has got to be the world's worst way to use a reference to draw your face. Like, if you were doing this commercially, or if you were trying to make the best portrait you could, you would never, ever use this technique. It's an awful way to make a good piece of art, but it's an amazing teaching tool. And you're not taking the class to produce the art, you're taking the class to learn the skill. So for the students watching this, and if your instructor says do not use a camera, there's a reason why. It's to make you a better artist. Your piece will not be the best it could be, nor should it be. And from my friends who teach art for a living and are professors, okay, I'm on your side with this. Like, don't, if your students say, hey, Riley in the video said, you know, always use cameras. I didn't say that. But I think we'll agree that if you are making something, trying to be the best it can be, you're going to want a camera most time, unless you're just an artist who doesn't use those. My grandfather, Don O'Neill, sponsor of this video because it's my business. You should buy Don O'Neill G clay prints, and if you're not in the market for one, please like us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Every little bit helps. We're a word of mouth business. But my grandfather used he used a camera, and like I said, the practical one was he would be off in some location. But then there's the other practical idea of how you compose something. And the painting I'm going to show you right here on the screen is going to be Mission in Towers. It's a long vertical one. Maybe I should put it like right here or something. And Mission in Towers has, it's at the Mission Inn, Riverside Mission Inn. This is my #1 selling G clay print, and you see why. It's a beautiful painting. But if you look at these two towers and you look closely, each one of them is actually a block apart. They're not next to each other. If you were standing there, where would you have to stand to get this view? Well, it's up in the air, and I'm pretty sure that when he got the reference photo for this, the library, he didn't go on the library. He was in a bucket. Some contractor gave him a bucket to go up in. Now, if you look, those two towers, if you were there in person, one would be really big and one would be really small just because it's perspective. And if you had a camera with you, what camera, or I should say what lens, would you want to use? I see a lot of people making paintings and it went through a camera lens. Now, more than likely it went through their phone because it's what they happen to have with them. Now I'm going to make a case that the phone is awesome because you have it in your pocket, but not for much else. I mean, it's, you know, it's photos look fine, but a wide angle, you know, that's your phone, a wide angle lens isn't really the best for capturing stuff for painting material, because with painting material you want to screw with perspective a lot more. Now, high-end cameras can be really expensive and the lenses are much more expensive, but I'm going to make a case for my little friend here. This is a Nikon P510. This came out in, I think, 2012. I got it in 2013. I've had it for 8 years now. And this has been one of my favorite cameras, and this is a super zoom camera. Now, photographers hate these things, and they get really passionate about it because for many things that a photographer wants, this doesn't really do it for you, so to speak. You know, the aperture isn't going to be that great. It's got a little itty bitty sensor on it. The lenses are good for what they do, but they're going to say, oh, you can't get the sharpness. Now I'm going to argue if you're painting or drawing from your camera material, you are never going to get anywhere near as sharp as this. Never in a million years. Your sharpness, when you do by hand, isn't going to touch this guy. So a truly great mirrorless or DSLR full frame zoom lens, they get really expensive. Now this guy goes to 180 millimeters, which for full frame equivalent I think is 1,000. I think is 1,000 millimeters. Now if you go price out like high-end zooms that are, you know, 600 millimeters for a full frame camera, they cost as much as a car, and they're huge, and they're, you know, if you drop it, it's like it's dead. This guy, I paid like 350 bucks for it in 2013. You can find these used for under $100. But what this gets you, for the artist is this gets you a perspective. Now, to go back to my grandfather's painting, Mission and Towers, which I will put up on the screen again. This painting was shot with a narrow lens. It had to be, because if you go with the wide angle camera and you try to get that same exact shot, including your phone, you're gonna find that the front tower is very large and the tower that's a block away is very small. And in the next video, I'm actually gonna go downtown. I'm gonna do some perspective stuff. But with this guy, or a camera like this, you can actually get them to where they're in proportion with each other. And I actually fell in love with this compositional tool. I'm gonna flash some of my drawings and sketches. I haven't done a finished painting in over 10 years. So if I do one for this little series, it'll be the first one I've done in a long time, so I will be very rusty. But hopefully the techniques that I'm using will kind of make up for the fact that I haven't been doing like actual, like, you know, on paper stuff. The compositional techniques will hold up though. If your theory is right, you know, your hands are bad. My grandfather actually had a neurological disorder. I don't have it, it's genetic, but I don't have it. I'm very fortunate because other family members do. Where it's just like a tremor. And it got out of control to where he couldn't really hold his brush still anymore. And, you know, he put him in a major depression and he stopped painting for a while. But then he eventually, you know, the depression, he worked on it and had help. But he eventually got back to painting, even though he could not hold the brush right. But he, in his mind, knew what made a great painting and was still able to do it. And some of his best work he painted disabled, which most artists never get to do. I think it's absolutely remarkable that some of my favorite paintings that he did disabled. But I digress. So with this guy, and this is the case I'm gonna make for artists, that you should get yourself a bridge camera. The camera stores do not like these things. And let's see if I can turn it on. Let's see, mine is very old. So these bridge cameras, what they allow you to do is they allow you to get far away from your subject matter and zoom in on it. And you think, why not just zoom with your feet, like with a nice prime? Now with my nice camera, I have a prime on there and I love it. Yes, the prime takes better photos for photography or video for video. That's not what we're doing this for though. We're doing this for source material for a painting. So this guy right here zooms out like this and it's real slow, but it allows you to get a really long shot. I'm going to show some example photos that I've shot over the years with this camera. Now the photographers, if you see this, you're going to say that's a crappy photo, it's not as sharp as it could be, it's blah 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 blah. Photographers and painters and drawers have very different priorities. There's something I'm looking for that you're not going to be able to get cheaply in another camera easily, but with this guy it's real easy, real cheap, real quick. And you know, will this take a better photo than a good camera? No, hell no. Better video? Not at all. I mean, like my Z50 for photos and videos blows this thing out of the water for everything. But I would still use this, and for the series I'm still going to use this as a compositional tool. When I actually, several years ago, I actually took this to a camera store and I just want to see what the new bridge cameras were. And I tell them kind of what I do, and like I do this technique where I'm doing this where I need everything flattened. They call it flattened perspective sometimes. And this tool flattens the perspective for you. And I get the eye roll because I don't know why, but people who run camera stores, you eye roll your customers and that shames them into buying them what you want to sell them. It didn't help them. I didn't buy anything. But I think you guys may want to kind of drop that attitude. But they tried to sell me a big full-frame DSLR, which was expensive. And they said, I said, I need a really powerful zoom on it to match this guy for what I'm doing. They said, oh, look at this one. And it was, $2,600. The DSLR was $2,000, and then for $5,000 you get a camera that will do this. And I'll say for $250, $300, Nikon probably sells some new version of this for $300. It's better than this guy. You get the same thing. So it's kind of And yeah, his solution's better for what he's doing, but it's not better for everything. And for this medium, I'm going to show you how it's not better. Now, the look I was actually going after was trying to get everything in scale. And with perspectives, like a wide angle camera, your perspective and scale can go all over the place based on where this is. And like I say, if you take a picture of a person in front of a building, on the screen the person's larger than the building, or they're completely not in scale with each other. But you can actually get a much better scale with a narrow lens. I'm gonna make the other case that because these are cheap and small, you don't really have to worry. I mean, if you have some big, you know, $5,000-$6,000 lens with you to get pictures for your paintings or drawings, it's way overkill. It's way more than you'll ever need. In fact, this is probably more than you'll ever need. But this fits in a small little box. It's tiny. It's safe. So I want to show you also some Don O'Neill stuff on here. Now what you're seeing, if it looks like it came through a lens, it's because it did. And a lot of people may debate, oh no, Don would have never done that, or he would have. Well, I'll tell you now, he told me he did before he died. I mean, because he was even telling me. And in some of his books, he actually described how he would do it. I didn't actually learn this directly from him, but I knew he was doing something very much like it. And then I went and I bought this camera and I started experimenting with myself. Oh, and it probably turned off because the battery is 10 years old. So anyway, the next video, I'm actually going to go to downtown Riverside and I'm going to recreate some of the scenes that he did. I'm going to probably paint something different, because I do want to do a whole painting for you guys using some of these techniques. But I'm going to use this camera, but I'm also going to use the GoPro, and I'm going to use the nice Nikon, and I'm going to show you how, while the nice Nikon is by far going to take the best pictures, for getting the composition, this guy is going to give you a lot more options than the big one will, the expensive one, because you're going to lose so much detail when you put it to drawing anyway, and the colors are going to be all coming from your paint anyway. The colors don't need to be as good, the sharpness doesn't need to be as good, but the focal range, this is better. And you say, oh, it's a little itty bitty sensor, who cares, I'm doing it by hand anyway. And then I want to show you how I'm going to draw it, because I had a lot of people, I used to do this on Instagram, where I would actually kind of draw it out using his technique. When drawing landscapes, I cheat. I'm going to use something called the camera lucidity on it, or I think it's camera lucida, I don't know. But it's on my old iPad. And that's actually how I use to lay everything out into sketch drawings. And I'll show a couple of them up here now, just so you can kind of see. The whole point of it is to get something on paper. I don't actually like printing photos out. Now, a lot of people who will do stuff off photos, they'll just print the photo out and then they'll side by side. That's fine. I don't like that method. Totally valid, totally good. My grandfather's method was he would actually project it on the wall and paint it full size and draw it out full size, and then from there make sketches and work. I don't. I actually draw it much smaller, and then I take my small drawing and I project that at the size I want to be, because I actually want it to go through my hands multiple times. It's kind of like when you make a copy of a copy, you lose something. Well, yeah, but now what if you take a photo, now you make a drawing off the photo, and then you make a painting off the drawing. It's not quality loss, it's artistic flair. It's okay, it's fine. And the most important thing is, I don't want to show these as rules. A TV production class I took, the instructor once told everyone, he said, there are no rules, there are only guidelines. There are things for you to follow that have desired results. You can do whatever you want. And my attitude is, so as long as you're not infringing on someone's copyright, you're totally free to do whatever you want. I've heard of people claiming that going to painting your own painting in a place someone else painted that painting is copyright. And I don't think so at all. Like, if you like a Don O'Neill painting and you want to paint your own, I don't care. Call it your painting, you know? And my attitude is, my grandfather, while he was an architect, he was not the architect on his paintings. He didn't design the mission in, so it's someone else's work. I've always thought it was funny when someone copyrights their photo of the Eiffel Tower and says, hey, no one else can take a photo of the Eiffel Tower because where I took the photo from. It's like, yeah, but you're not Eiffel. You didn't build the Eiffel Tower. It's someone else's work. So artists build on each other, and if they say otherwise, just write them off. However, just a disclaimer, if your instructor says no using cameras, it's to serve a completely different purpose. In your professional or making projects of your own, you want to use every tool you can. This is just a tool. But in class, your goal is different. Your goal is to learn a skill, and a lot of times to learn that skill, you have to remove aids and other things to help you. But with when you're doing your own projects, I use, like I say, in class, I try to never use any aids, never use any tools, and because I'm learning. But anything I would do on my own projects, I'm pulling every tool out of the bag that I can. I'm going to use tracing paper. I'm going to use markers. Yeah, I think of all these after I film all these, and I try to find a place to put them in the middle. There's a book I read by Robert Wade, an Australian artist, amazing artist. I'll actually link to him because this book was incredibly influential. And a point he makes is that for learning or studying or just enjoyment of the medium, out in the world, plein air painting is the best. It's such an enjoyable thing to do, and you can learn so much, and you can study something so intensely, and it is a tool to make you a better artist. Now my take is, but you're not going to create your best works with those methods. You're going to create your best works when you have the studio, and he even mentioned that in the book. You're going to have the best work when you have every tool at your disposal. But to learn from and enjoy, the camera is just another tool, but you do paint in person. Probably going to be out of order, but I should add, a lot of artists, a lot of painters don't like the idea of using cameras and will criticize other people's work for doing that. And I think this is actually the wrong thing to do. I mean, you can criticize whatever you want, but the quality of a piece is not determined by how you did it. Art is not a sport in dexterity where you're just seeing who can do it with just their eyeballs. That's not the point. The point was create a final finished product, not create a final finished product using certain rules to impress other artists. The worst reason to do art is to impress other artists, unless they're your instructors or people you were trying to learn from. That's not why I've ever painted a painting. Instructors, yes, or friends, yes, but I've never went out and said, hey, I'm gonna do this to share with other artists because I want them to like it. You don't need them to like it. They don't matter. There is no wrong way to paint. One time my dad saw my grandfather doing this technique, or one very similar to it, and he said, Dad, you're cheating. And my grandfather responded, he said, you can't cheat in art. There's no cheating. Your objective is to create a piece, not to follow a set of rules. I said, this is not a sport. I said, the only exceptions really are if you tell everyone you did this plein air, but you didn't, you're a liar. Or if you're taking a class that your instructor says you are not to do this from a camera, there's a reason why, and you shouldn't do it from a camera then. But do understand, the lessons they're teaching you, when you go out and do it with the camera, your results are going to be even better. You're taking the class to become a better artist, not to actually produce great art in the class. Every assignment that I had in classes in school, I learned something from and I became better at. But I'll tell you this now, under no circumstances were the things that I painted in school anywhere near what I think is the best of what I've done. But I took those lessons and applied them to everything else. So as long as you don't tell everyone you're doing this plein air style and you're not cheating in class, this is totally valid. And if you share your art and a bunch of snobs tell you it's not real art, they're just copying off the camera, tell them off. Tell them right now, tell them off. And if you're one of these snobs, get bent. Seriously, you guys make the art world a much worse place. And I don't know why. It's not for your benefit. It's certainly not for the artist's benefit. If you're a plein air painter, understand it's a different medium, and you guys are amazing. But I see a lot of toxicity on this on Reddit, and you guys just need to get bent and just lose it because you guys are awful. What matters is the final piece. How you got there is up to you. And throughout all of history, people made art with the tools they had at hand. And the lens was one of those tools. And to ignore it is to ignore art history and to ignore one of the most powerful methods you have. So anyway, wanted to throw that in there. So anyway, what this series is, I don't know if they're going to be in a row, probably have some intermediate ones, but I'm going to actually take this camera to downtown along with this GoPro, and I'm going to show you why you want a narrow angle camera over a wide angle camera, and how a wide angle camera, unless that's what you're going after, is the wrong tool to use. And how if you're a painter and you're using your phone or something, I'm telling you right now, you get one of these guys, buy one used for $100, and get back from your subject and zoom in on it. And photographers call it amateur talk, but for a painter, it gets an effect that you cannot get with your feet. And you can create some really great compositions that are very painterly. Like I say, if you look at all the Don O'Neill stuff, you'll notice probably almost none of them came through a wide angle lens. And if you tried to recreate that composition, that painting, with a wide angle lens, you can't do it. Things will be out of scale. Things in the background will be tiny. Things in the foreground will be huge. That's the trick. So anyway, after that, I'm actually gonna show how I draw it, and then I'm gonna do a value study one, and then maybe a color study. And if I really feel up to it, I will then do a video where I actually go and paint a painting from this process. So anyway, folks, this will be 10 minutes long, and this shows 17 minutes. Oh, it's probably 25 minutes long. It's no good. Anyway, folks, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, like, share. Follow me on Instagram at Riley O'Neill. I post every day. It's free. No one ever tells anyone post on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. It's free. Check out my business site, dononeil.com. Follow us on there, Instagram on there, Don O'Neill Watercolor. We post a lot of really great stuff on there. Keep artists alive, keep painting. I will see you next time.